Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm your host, Cesar Hernandez. We're here to talk about El Tri. We're here to talk about the fact that they are now in the World Cup. Congratulations, everyone. We finally made it. We don't really have the problems from last time, thank God. But, guys, before we really start getting into that, Mexico's upcoming match too. Remember, they still have 3 games left in qualifying. Let me first introduce tonight's guest. We have Tom Marshall, who usually is in Guadalajara, but it looks like he's in somewhere a little different today. Tom, how you doing, man?
I'm all right. I'm in a hotel room in Costa Rica. Here in San Jose. I'm here in San Jose, Costa Rica, covering the game tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Yeah, all good. Been a busy couple of days covering it, running around the city, but yeah, looking forward to rounding off. I don't know, is it still summer? Probably not quite, is it?
It's kind of ending, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more time.
Kind of feels like the last kind of thing with Mexico after a long summer.
Right. Nayib, you're over in Mexico City. How you doing, man? You attended the last match where Mexico got that qualification for the World Cup. We're going to hear you talk about that later on today as well. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good. Buenas noches, Cesar, Tom, also Jason that is in there, but we can't see him, but he's actually there. Great atmosphere, I think, in the last days, I would say. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I think it's a sense to be happy. I'm kind of confused in the sense that there's critique on qualifying to the World Cup, but considering how bad it has been in the last 2 World Cup cycles, I think there's reason to be happy on how this qualification actually took place.
Yeah, no, especially since Mexico got this in only 7 matches, and like you said, Nayib, and you've seen some of the problems. We were still, I mean, those problems from the last qualifying run. Look, it still feels like they happened semi-recently. It feels like it was almost like a year ago, almost 2 years ago. But guys, before we really start getting into, let's go into the question of the week. With qualification now secured, how would you like El Tri to approach tomorrow's match against Costa Rica? Tom, how should Mexico approach it?
No, I mean, he's going to make changes because that's what he's going to do. I mean, I think we should expect Raul Jimenez, Irving Lozano, Jonathan Dos Santos, but, those are some of Mexico's top players. So it's not like, you put in kind of reserve team out. Those are players that are going to be in the mix when it comes to the World Cup. So Mexico has to approach this game with absolutely 100% seriousness, because there's not many games now between now and the World Cup that are going to be this intense. Coming to Costa Rica, the Ticos fans are absolutely pumped up. I mean, they're coming off the back of that 2-0 win over the United States. Feels like it's the first result really under Oscar Ramirez that the fans have really got behind, that they've seen like a Costa Rica team that they really liked. And I think they're so desperate to secure their qualification at home against Mexico. And I think that from El Tri's point of view, it's a great test for the Mexican national team. And with qualification now in the bag, I think tomorrow it's going to be a really top game, and I don't think there's any doubt Mexico are going to go out there and it's going to be absolutely 100%, no doubt about it for me.
Yeah, Nayib, how would you like El Tri to approach this match?
No, I think when I see this game and the opportunity that comes with it, I mean, I kind of remember how the Confederation, when they play against Russia, and how it was the pro-Russia crowd in the stadium, and Mexico beat Russia 2-1, and I think those type of games raise the competitiveness level of the team. This is the same kind of deal with Costa Rica. Costa Rica is the team that best finished in the World Cup in 2014 from the CONCACAF region. So, I mean, the respect is there, and try to make another statement. I mean, try to interpret this game like Osorio interpreted the Columbus game. I think it did wonders, that Columbus game, that Columbus win for the national team, a boost of confidence, a boost of morale. And I think this getting a win in Costa Rica tomorrow would do kind of a similar deal to the national team. So I think it's not, I don't know how many changes we'll see. Tom mentions names there like Jonathan and Raul Jimenez. But actually, I'm actually, one of the things that I would like to see is see Mexico try that Tecatito, Vela, Chicharito, Giovanni deal again.
Yeah.
In a scenario of this sort. I mean, Osorio hasn't tried it since, if I'm not mistaken, since that Columbus game. Why not try it again in Costa Rica? Might be a risk, of course, but we've seen with Osorio that he likes playing offensively, so it's a good opportunity to see that quartet, and see if it works out this time around.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's see what happens. I mean, as nice as it would be to see Chicharito again get the start. It seems like, I mean, Jimenez will probably get that place in his starting up top for Mexico. But let's see what happens. Let's see what some people said on the chat. Chris XG said, play the second stringers. No reason to risk injury. Let's see. At Calcio Hockey 16 said, play the young guys, give them experience in this type of game. And then we have someone who disagrees a little bit, I Mendoza, who said, go all out, end in the top. So let's see how Mexico goes tomorrow. Like we've talked about, it's a little difficult to predict what Osorio will do. I mean, how I would like them to go out, I guess, and like some have said, I'd like to see some options for some of those bench players who I think could still get a win for Mexico. I think like the Dos Santos brothers could do quite well. Jimenez could do quite well. Getting a start for Lozano would be interesting. But yeah, let's see what happens, guys. Let's quickly talk about last week's win. I mean, first up, once again, congratulations to Mexico. They finally qualified for the World Cup. I mean, it's such a unnecessary source of stress for me. And I imagine just completely unnecessary. And like, I just can't tell you how happy I was after. I know it wasn't the best game, but just how happy I was. But let's go over to Nayib. Nayib, you were there in Mexico City. You were there at the Estadio Azteca. You saw Chucky Lozano's game-winning goal in the second half. Tell us about the match. Tell us about your thoughts. Maybe a little bit about the atmosphere as well.
No, I think, of course, the stadium didn't pack. I think it was obvious that the entrance wasn't going to be good, and there was a series of factors for not being packed because of the rain, and the price of the tickets might be high, and the set of expectations, might not be at the sky. I think there's a lot of critiques there, still criticals of Osorio's ways, and I think that can be sensed. But in the game itself, I mean, I did sense that even though there was troubling moments, Panama got its shots on goal, there was a sense that Mexico was going to manage to get the win, no? And I think that's something that has to be highlighted with Osorio, is that Mexico has recuperated its home essence, no? That, when teams comes to Mexico, it's hard for them to get a result. In the last qualifiers, basically all the teams got results. So this time around, it's refreshing to see that Mexico, even though it might be complicated, it's not a 3-0, 4-0 win. You got to give respect to these opponents. Mexico has been able to get wins and not concede goals, which I think is another important aspect of the hexagonal with Osorio. The only team that has scored goals against Mexico has been the U.S. and in Columbus, and the goal that Bradley scored in Azteca. And you could say that the goal that Bradley scored was a self-inflicted error. It was an error from Chicharito in the passing distribution, but it looks solid in the back, in the hexagonal region, and that's something to value and commend.
Yeah, Tom, you were there as well. Your thoughts on the match. I mean, personally, I think that we'll get your thoughts first before I start rambling.
What did you think?
I mean, I think from the short-term perspective, it's kind of, if this match wouldn't have secured a spot in the World Cup for Mexico, I think that I don't know, I'd be a little bit more worried. I don't think Mexico was that efficient in the attack. I think that, I don't know, they didn't really capitalize on a number of chances. I think the number one example was Aquino, who just he had just a huge amount of time to score. So I was just a little worried. But I mean, obviously from looking at a bigger perspective, obviously it's a big win for Mexico, and I can't help but feel happy. But I don't know, it wasn't the best game. But then again, maybe we shouldn't be worrying about that too much when a spot in the World Cup has already been guaranteed.
No, I mean, I think, I don't think it was a completely inspiring performance. I thought Mexico were pretty good. I mean, I thought they had the better of the game. But Panama should have equalized in that with that basically the last minute. I mean, I think that's the interesting thing. I don't know. I don't think it's just Mexico, but incidents like that, if that ball would have gone in, then the whole kind of conversation around the national team again would have been dragged back to the Gold Cup, the Confederations Cup. Osorio's failing. Now he can't get a result even at home against Panama. you know, he doesn't put it in, and now everything's kind of rosy again. So I think it's good to kind of try and remain neutral. And obviously, you know, we do get in the media obsessed with the results, I think, but I think Mexico are coming together under Osorio now. I really do, and I think that in the games that really, really matter, in the hexagonal, where he's had his best team, then I think he's got the job done. And everybody can say, you know, the CONCACAF region, that the quality's gone downhill. Well, look at the state struggling. You know, it's just not easy. And people say, oh, you know, people still have this idea that it should be easy. Well, it's not. I mean, if you're there at the game and you see how Panama are kind of set up in a 4-4-2, I mean, they're so compact. I mean, they're not even, the two strikers aren't even on the halfway line. They're in their own half. Like, and it's just very difficult to break that down. And obviously Mexico have to work on that in terms of, you know, getting results, finding that little bit more creativity. But, you know, it's all about getting the job done. It's what Mexico did. And I think, you know, the players, the celebration was something that should be noted. I mean, the players really, really together, the coaching staff together. I thought that if you look back at the goal when Irving Lozano put it in, watch the celebration. And I think it says a lot about the team. He goes straight over to the bench. All the substitutes are there. All the coaching staff are there. The whole team's there. And that's Mexico right now. It's a very united group of players. And I think that bodes well moving forward. I do think they're in quite good shape moving towards the World Cup.
Yeah, I was going to ask this question later, but I think I'm going to ask it now. But how much credit should we give Osorio?
Be a rebel.
I'm going to be a rebel. There we go. How much credit should we give Osorio? You know, for helping Mexico qualify for this, because I feel like something you always see online. If Mexico, like, and you'll see that a lot from like on Twitter, and you'll see on comments on Facebook, and you'll see, you know, even some media people saying this too, where if Mexico does well, it's like, well, you know, it's the players pulled through despite, you know, the fact that Osorio's in charge. And then if they struggle, people will say like, oh, well, you know, it's Osorio, it's all his fault. So how much credit should Osorio be given for qualifying for the World Cup? We'll go to Nayib on this.
No, I think a lot. You know, starting in Columbus, this qualifiers, and considering what happened with the 7-0 against Chile and what that provoked as repercussion, it wasn't easy. You know, no Mexican national team had gone to Columbus and gotten the win, and it could have been more than just 2-1. It could have been 4-1 had it not been for the post and had it not been for Tim Howard. I think one point that Tom just made that has to be mentioned with CONCACAF teams and when they come to Azteca is how compact they are, you know, and how they try to defend to the last limit. And you got to find ways as a coach and as a team to break apart that. You know, luckily, you know, the idea of putting Gallardo and Dam to start the game was an interesting one. Perhaps it didn't work out well as one would have thought. Maybe Gallardo had more participation than Dam. But when you have players like, for example, Tecatito Corona, that with one individual play can change you whatever happens. I mean, Corona can take 3 players and make it look so easy. I think that is also something that perhaps in the last World Cup cycle, Mexico didn't have. I mean, maybe you can say that it was Giovanni Dos Santos who should have done that, but Tecatito seems to be born for this type of moment, you know, and I think he has this hunger. And I think Mexico missed that in the Confederations Cup, not having that player that can break the defenses apart like Tecatito Corona. But like what I was saying, I think him finding ways to make this a peaceful hexagonal, Osorio, I think has to be valued, you know. And I think in Mexico, it's always this idea that Mexico has to play beautiful, like Spain and Germany. I mean, wait a second there. Spain and Germany have taken years to reach that level, and France as well. Mexico doesn't have players playing in the lead of the lead, you know. Mexican players have a sort of, they're talented, but they're not the lead of the lead. With what little Osorio has, you know, he's cruising in the hexagonal, and he might finish undefeated.
Yeah, but I mean, even teams like, for example, Germany don't always attack. I mean, just look at the Mexico-Germany game. Germany went 2-0 up, a couple of mistakes by Mexico, and a couple of brilliant finishes as well. Let's not forget that. I mean, Germany had 2 chances in the first, 10 minutes, and they took them both, and they were brilliant finishes. But after that, Germany sat back. I mean, and I think that's what Osorio gives Mexico. I think he gives the players more tools to work with, to go out on the field and get results. And that's why he's the most successful Mexico manager ever.
Yeah.
Of those managers who have got 20 games or more, Osorio's got the best win percentage and the most points per game than any. And I mean, that's you don't get that by being a bad manager. You know what I mean? So I think that's what I think about Osorio. I think he's, especially in this CONCACAF, he's taken a step back. He said, right, where's Mexico had problems historically? Okay, how are we going to get over that? Then this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to Trinidad and we're going to play 2 centre backs, and then we're going to play 2 holding midfielders who are also centre backs. And it's not always not always really pretty, but it's efficient. And I think Mexico have dominated possession in every game they played this year. And I don't think they've had a majority of possession against every team. So they are taking the game to the opposition as well. But he's also kind of tried to put some steel in terms of the spine of the team. I mean, we've got a question here from a wolf in sheep's clothing. What is the point of praising him for his record in qualifying for the World Cup if he also has the worst record against the big clubs? Look at goal differential. Yeah, I mean, the 7-0 against Chile, there's no...
Yeah.
There's nobody who can say, oh, they were unlucky, they did this, they did that. No, he went toe-to-toe with Chile and they got absolutely battered. Especially when the 3rd goal went in, the players' heads went down. They kind of got, stage fright, basically. And then the goals came, and that's what a team like Chile can do to you. Even though they've just lost 3-0 against Paraguay at home. It's what happens. But, my question, my answer to that is, when have Mexico defeated a big nation? When have Mexico won a really important game against an elite team? And so why with Osorio, when Mexico went up against Germany, were Mexico suddenly expected to win? They can win, and they have historically defeated big teams, but they've never done that consistently. So for me, the whole conversation about he doesn't beat big teams, well, would Herrera beat a big team?
No.
What happened against Holland? I mean, he was tactically outwitted by Van Gaal. That's why the Netherlands won. The Netherlands didn't even play well, and they got past Mexico. And I think Osorio is somebody who comes in and he's got just more tools in his box than someone like Herrera, to be honest. And I think that there's a better chance with Osorio. I'll go the other way. I think there's a better chance of Osorio getting a result against a big team in the World Cup than with, say a Miguel Herrera, Tuca Ferretti, for example. I just think, I just think he's learnt a lot from that defeat against Chile. He's learned a lot from the Germany result, and he's not going to sit back and make the same mistakes, because he personally did make mistakes as well. I think he's learned from that, and I think things are looking good going to the World Cup. I think we're seeing this Mexico national team. We know what it is now. I think we could probably name 18 of the 23-man squad right now.
Yeah.
We know what it is, and now it's about using this time from now till next June to really fine tune. I mean, I don't know. Let me throw you a question. I read something. He should be playing some of the younger players. I'm not necessarily sure whether I agree with that now. I mean, I love seeing the young players come through, and I think there are 1, 2, 3 possibly who deserve that. Deserve a chance to get in the squad and even to maybe break the team for the World Cup. But I'm not sure if I don't think it's time for him to experiment right now. I think that was the Gold Cup. That was previously. Yeah. I think now it's like...
I think looking forward, though, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, for example, next month's call-up, like, who are some of those options that we're going to see there? Are we going to see in that October call-up? Are we going to see the best of the best, what Mexico should be, potentially preparing for the next World Cup? Are we going to be seeing some of those younger guys? Or are we seeing... someone who might be not even a bench player right now? And I think that's something, we're going to talk about this later too, but just like, are we going to see, I mean, I think an example would be like, I don't know, are we going to see maybe Pizarro? Are we going to see Cuba Torres? Are we going to see, ever see some of those backup options in the next call?
I see. I mean, the Pompilio after the win against Panama was pretty straightforward. It's a new kind of, step in the process, a new stage in the process, and in this new stage, the vision or the main goal is to reach the World Cup at the best possible level. And there's a lot of factors behind that. When they say we want to reach the World Cup at a great level, you have to factor in how your players are doing, at club level, and right now you see Layun being benched, you see Reyes being benched in Porto, you see Raul Jimenez. They didn't make moves here. That factors into how well these players are going to reach. We know that they're top quality players, But if they're not players with rhythm, that puts a factor that might deter Mexico's options in the World Cup, which are out of control of Osorio here. And look, here with the processes, every process has its ups and downs. I think that's something that we as media have to understand here. Yeah. Everything seems to be, you want to do everything quick, everything okay. 3 years, 4 years, let's give this man a shot and see what happens. Well, it's a start and an end. We're still kind of in the middle. And I know that the results against Chile and Germany were probably, well, there's a lot of locura, and you can make the argument that they said, oh, they scored 11 and Mexico only scored 1 in those 2 matches. But it's you got to factor in what these players are learning. They're learning to think, I think, with Osorio. A lot. We're learning how to think with this man as a coach, because, for example, right now, I can think of an 11, but it's probably not going to be the 11 that Osorio is going to put tomorrow. So,
I mean, this is my problem when people say, we go up against a big team and we're just going to get knocked out. And then Osorio's to blame for that. That's the thing I don't understand, because who do you want to come in, Mourinho or Guardiola? I mean, what's the alternative?
I think the problem is, Tom, is that, like, I agree. It's like, what is the alternative? But I do think that there is a part of the fan base that would prefer to see a Piojo or Mohamed or someone along that level, someone on a Liga MX level instead of Osorio. I don't think that's the right answer, but I do genuinely think there are people out there who would prefer that than Osorio.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I mean, Guillermo Ochoa talking today, and he said some really interesting things about Mexico in such a. He was asked, why are Mexico, basically strolling to the World Cup this time round compared to 4 years ago? And he said, we've been given continuity. We've got a relationship with the coaching staff. It's a very open relationship. We like them. We like the style of play that they're implementing. And it was just like, sometimes you have to take a step back and listen to what the players are saying, and the players aren't lying. I mean, I just think so many players have so consistently said that they like Osorio that you have to give him, even if you don't like him, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt right now.
Yeah. Okay, here's another question from the M Guy 24, who says, seriously, the problem with Osorio is that he puts players out of their position. What would you guys say to that? I know we've seen someone like Hector Moreno, who actually has been playing a little bit at that left back position, not in this season, but some of those preseason friendlies. I mean, guys, what are your thoughts on that? When people do feel bothered, because if you were to look at a list of things that fans are bothered by, you would say that probably number 1, number 2 is players being played out of position, especially with some of those defenders. What would you guys say in your response?
Right? I think that's one of the main ones. Is the fullback issue with for example, putting Carlos Salcedo, natural center back, as a right back, but he played as a right back in Fiorentina. Yeah. That I think is the issue. Perhaps I think if I had to pick one thing, it's not so much out of the position. It's just trying to find the right defensive midfielder for this team to work out perfectly. I think having Hector Herrera there it's a liability kind of. He offers you some things, but defensively he might mess you up a little bit. So I think nailing that position down, especially now that I think Rafa's not going to play in the World Cup by the looks of it, you have to find someone that can give you ability to open up more on the field. The problem there with the having center backs as a fullback, I don't see that much trouble in it. I think, in the aerial game, it works out fine. I think the team has found ways to score more goals off free kicks and corner kicks with Osorio than any other coach that I have seen in the last year. So I think that's a positive. It's more on determining that role, I think, defensive midfield position. The out of position deal, I mean, I don't think that's that big of a deal as many of us trying to make it look like.
Yeah. Well, guys, before we get a little derailed on just Osorio, I know it's a lot of fun to talk about Osorio. Just a couple of final quick things on the Panama match. I mean, one thing that stood out to me the most, I mean, other than, and we've talked about Tecatito, I think Tecatito is one of those players that you need against CONCACAF opponents. So you need him to just try and take some risk and to try to break down a defense. But of course, the star of the show was Chucky Lozano in the second half. And my question to you guys is this the moment where he becomes one of Mexico's most important players, where maybe perhaps by 2018 we'll see this gradual progress from gradual transition over to become an undisputed starter for the three? Tom, your thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily think so. I think it's going to be more 2022 that Chucky Lozano's got to become an absolute key figure. I think he's got time, and I think it's part of the reason is that behind that is that Mexico have got a lot of wingers. So I don't necessarily think that. I think Chucky Lozano could quite legitimately be used like against Panama, where he comes off the bench. Within 1 minute of him entering the game, it should have been a penalty. He should have won a penalty.
Yeah.
And then 1 minute later, he scores a goal. So I think that I don't know. He might start games in the World Cup. I'm sure that's a big possibility. But he equally might come off the bench. And it's what a great player to have around. And I think his career's going very, very nicely. I mean, it's been absolutely almost perfect, apart from the Olympics potentially. But apart from that, he's moved to PSV, scoring goals straight away, and bit by bit, really pressurizing for a starting place in the national team now.
Yeah, Nayib, just to close out on Mexico versus Panama, your final thoughts on the match, but anything else from the match that we haven't really talked about or discussed from that 1-0 win last Friday?
It was interesting following Twitter and seeing the critique specifically on Carlos Vela. No, I think Carlos Vela didn't play his brightest of games. It was rather quiet, and a lot of the judgment on him, I think, will be different now that we know that he's moving to Los Angeles FC and what he can offer. I mean, this is practically, I don't know, I think it might be his last World Cup chance. He skipped the last one when he was at his best level. What he offers, though, is his experience, the international experience that he has. He is one of the players that possesses a lot of skills that not most of Mexico footballers have. So it will be interesting to see how that moves forward. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I might be wrong, but I do see Vela being an important part of Osorio's national team in next year's World Cup because of the talent that he has,
Yeah, I think my problem there is that I mean Tom just brought it up, but Mexico has a lot of options in those winger positions. You have Vela, Tecatito, Lozano. I mean, looking deeper, you have Dam, you've got Aquino, I'm sure I'm missing someone else there. So I'm not entirely convinced. I mean, I know he does have the experience, and I'd say on paper he is probably Mexico's most talented player, but I don't know. I feel like he's got some tough competition.
There's something weird with Vela. I mean, if you look at the percentage of minutes he's played in the big game in the call-ups for Osorio, it's very little. I think it's around 40%, something like that. Which for somebody who should be a really important player is nothing. There's something not quite right, I feel sometimes with Vela and Osorio. I mean, remember he didn't get called up. Was it last fall?
Yeah.
Didn't get called for Centenario.
Yeah.
And I think especially when you consider that someone like Raul Jimenez could even play. I mean, it's not a traditional winger-like role, but you've seen maybe even like a Chicharito, depending on what Osorio wants to do. He has some of those weird positions.
I think the case of Vela and the case of Giovanni Dos Santos are going to be interesting to see from now to the World Cup because it's on and off with those two. And at least Vela has scored goals and given assists. Giovanni hasn't done anything that has been noticeable, that has been important for the well-being of the team when it comes to winning or getting a good result. So how do you judge those players or what is the influence that they're going to have? Because right now we're talking about Chucky Lozano. And, Chucky has been important in the hexagonal. 2 goals in the hexagonal. 3 goals in the World Cup qualifiers, the same as Tecatito Corona. The influence of Corona and Chucky has been more important than the influence of Vela and Giovanni.
Yeah.
But Vela and Giovanni have this history that it makes them, and they are, I mean, they make the team happy. I mean, they do buen grupo, how they say, no? So, I mean, that's the reason that they're still in. But what are they going to give to the national team in the next months?
No, I think that's really interesting, too. We'll see what happens there, just because, I mean, you would assume that they would be the leaders of the team, but like you said, there's some guys behind them who might be pushing them out of the squad. So we'll see what happens. Guys, let's talk about Costa Rica versus Mexico. Before Mexico can celebrate the fact that they're going to the World Cup, they still have a match tomorrow. A really difficult away match. I mean, if you were to think that they had the list of games ahead of time, that this would have been one of the ones that they would have said would be one of the most difficult. Maybe perhaps just as difficult as the one away against the United States. Tom, you're over there in Costa Rica. Obviously, Costa Rica just needs a win to qualify for the World Cup. What's the atmosphere like over there? Anything about the press conference or anything that's been happening recently?
Nope, nothing happening here.
Just hanging out, just doing your thing.
Yeah, not been out really. Not really been out much. No, it's no. The Costa Rica fans are absolutely pumped up after that win over the States. I think they feel like it's the perfect opportunity against Mexico to kind of get over the line, reach the World Cup. And, Costa Rica are doing the thing. I mean, everyone talks about Mexico and the United States being the giants of the region, and Costa Rica are consistently splitting them, or if not overtaking them. I mean, that happened 4 years ago where Mexico was struggling, and it's happening once again with the United States struggling. And Costa Rica's there maintaining a kind of a level, picking up results, doing the thing. And so, yeah, I think they're quite confident. And yeah, there's a lot of talk about Ochoa and Keylor Navas. Ochoa said basically he respects Navas a lot today, that there's because Costa Rica's assistant coach said that Guillermo Ochoa is not even fit to clean Navas's boots. He said that back in March. So Ochoa was asked about that today, and Ochoa said, look, it was the comment was completely out of order, that he shouldn't be saying things like that, but he respects Keylor Navas, and he's deserved everything that he's achieved in his career, obviously with Real Madrid and with Costa Rica. So yeah, I think that's what's going on. Obviously, Osorio talking today, he seems quite relaxed, talking about he's got a lot to do before the World Cup, and not a lot of time to do with him. But I don't know. I mean, you listen to the players these days, and there's very much a sense of they like Osorio, they like him a lot, and I think that's something that you see when you're with the team. You see that you listen to players. Sometimes the comments don't even go out into the public, but you hear them, and it's very consistent. And I think that it's very notable right now that's what's happening with the Mexican national team. And yeah, I think that they're excited about the game. I think Osorio, I was hearing that the next objective is to reach 24 points, I heard. So yeah, they're on 17 now. That's a couple of wins and a draw. So that's the target, I believe, that Juan Carlos Osorio has set for the players.
Well, speaking of Osorio, Nayib, do you expect him to really have some rotaciones? Are we going to have a completely different 11? Or perhaps a better question is should he be putting a lot of changes tomorrow?
No, well, I think the return of Hector Moreno will be important, coming off that injury that he had, or I don't know if it was an injury or rest that they gave him. Not having Hector Herrera because of injury, that provokes a new kind of midfield that he might tend to might be lean to use. Who will take over that role of Tom at the start of the show mentioned Jonathan Dos Santos. Jonathan Dos Santos is coming from the Galaxy in a different type of lifestyle that he's now in, and kind of new challenge for him to call it some way. So it's not the same Jonah that we saw a couple of months ago when he was in Villarreal playing excellent. Raúl Jiménez, if he starts, does that mean that Chicharo doesn't start at all, or how that's going to work? Or maybe he puts Chicharo on one side as a winger, like he on the left side, and Raúl on the center. But I think the rotaciones, maybe changes. I maybe five or even 4. I mean, I think there will be changes, no? But what I would want to see, it's kind of, for example, someone like Edson Alvarez that we talked a lot about. I thought he was going to play against Panama, and he ended up not playing at all. If he plays, where does he play? As right back, or as a defensive midfielder, or as a center back? I mean, there's 3 options there where he could play. But all those little things that we'll see. And like I mentioned at the start of the show, I mean, I think it sounds risky to say it, but Giovanni, Vela, Tecatito, and Chicharito would be interesting to see in a match like this one.
Yeah, it seems like, if I remember correctly, the last time that Mexico took on Costa Rica and also United States, or United States away, that Mexico went with a back line of 4 players. So maybe if we do see Edson, it'll be in that maybe that right back position, and maybe we'll see
played in the World Cup, yeah,
and maybe we'll see. But I'm thinking for some reason we might see like a 4-2-3-1. Maybe we'll see Jonah and Guardado in the middle, because I was a little disappointed by Guardado in the last match. I felt like he was fairly quiet, so I'd like to see him get another opportunity against Costa Rica. But I do wonder what we'll see there. Tom, maybe let's go to you. I mean, what do you? If you were to give us, actually, let's try something. Tom, if you were to give us your predicted starting 11, if you could just like really quickly, I know I'm putting you on the spot, man. Putting you on the spot. I see you writing it down. You're probably writing down a sheet of paper. What would be your predicted starting 11 for tomorrow?
No, I think he'll go with Corona in goal. I think that's a 50-50 though. I think Guillermo Ochoa is the number one now, and I think that's gonna stay. But because Corona's in such good form for Cruz Azul, he's come down. It's possible that they'll play. I think Edson Alvarez has been, if you go back to the Confederations Cup, Edson Alvarez was with the squad. Osorio was training him every day.
Yeah.
And I think he's trained him for the right back role. I mean, I think that's where he sees him playing. And to be fair, I thought Edson Alvarez played really well in the Gold Cup. He was
Mexico's best player. I think
the best player.
Yeah.
For me, he was the real positive from the Gold Cup, which was overall negative, but Edson Alvarez was great. I think his position is the right back position, and I think he's got all the tools to play it. Although I know people say, people don't like that, but he played right wing back for La Volpe. So Osorio's not the first manager to try Edson Alvarez on the right, and I don't think it's going to be Ayala and Cesar Montes, which is a little bit risky. And I think left back will be Gallardo, because I don't think there's too many options there. Oh, sorry. No, Ayala and Moreno.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. And then, or even Cesar Montes and Moreno, and then Gallardo. Then I think Reyes is going to play in the holding role. I just think historically Osorio likes a bigger player there. And then I think Jonathan Dos Santos and possibly even Giovanni Dos Santos ahead in kind of the interiores, ahead of the holding midfielder. And then I think on the wing, I think we go Lozano. I think we can go Raul Jimenez possibly, and then up front possibly Chicharito again. We'll see.
So 4-3-3, Tom, brother.
Yeah, 4-3-3.
Yeah.
Nayib, your thought? I mean, what would be your predicted starting 11? Something along those lines. I mean, I think I'm more so of a 4-2-3-1. Maybe just from what we've seen in the past, but what would you think that Mexico would go with tomorrow?
Well, I think the Edson as right back, like Tom mentioned, I think that's going to be the case. And Ayala, Moreno, I think that also could happen. But also, I mean, you never know. I mean, Moreno as left back.
Yeah, I think that's a big question for me. I don't know about you guys. That's the big question for me as a defense. Is like, what is he going to do there? I mean, just like, is Gallardo going to get another start? Is Moreno going to? Is it guaranteed he's going to be there? But anywho, Nayib, I cut you off.
No. And also, Tom, remember, Vela has played the midfield role. Remember the game against Ireland? He played in that position that you're giving to Giovanni. So it's basically, it could be Vela, Reyes, and Jonathan, for example.
I just think Giovanni Dos Santos. I think Vela, because he played the full game against Panama. I think Giovanni Dos Santos. I think he's going to start him just because he needs to play. Giovanni needs to play now. He didn't have a great summer with the national team, although he didn't get a load of chances either.
Yeah.
But I think Giovanni Dos Santos is another player whose position with the national team isn't. I don't know where he fits in right now, to be honest. I don't know where Giovanni.
I don't know. I think with Giovanni, Tom, I would put him more ahead. Make him one of the three forwards that you mentioned if you're gonna play. Because in the midfield, I think it's giving him a lot of responsibilities. Maybe it puts a question on Osorio's methods, because, for example, I think Guardado should play because of his captain's role, but then again, he played the 90 in Mexico and it wasn't the best of his performances. I think his passing was off. That's what struck me the most with Guardado in the game on Friday. The passing was off. The long ball wasn't good. But Guardado, I think, should start in the midfield, especially against Costa Rica. So maybe there, Reyes, Jonathan, and Guardado in midfield, and then forward maybe Giovanni, Chicharo, and Raul. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But I do have this tendency to lean maybe to give the starting role to Tecatito instead of either Raúl or Chicharito.
Yeah, no,
But it depends on really what Osorio, because it looks like Costa Rica is going to repeat the same 11 from the game against the US, right, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, Ramirez said that there's a couple of players with knocks, but they're going to decide in the morning whether they can play. But I mean, when that's the case, they usually do play.
Yeah.
All
right, guys. So, guys, just on the Costa Rican match, just to kind of wrap things up on that game, let's hear your prediction for the match. I'm going with personally, I'm going with a 1-1 draw. I think we're going to see some. I mean, whether it be Corona or Ochoa, I think Corona is probably the player who's going to be getting that start. I mean, he's done quite well recently for Cruz Azul, so I think he'll get the start. I think we're going to see some brilliant goalkeeping performances, but I'll go with the 1-1 draw in that match. I still think it's going to be an exciting one. Tom, predictions?
Yeah, I think it's going to be 1-1 as well, because depending on the other results, this is the thing. It could be enough for Costa Rica to go through, and I think if that's the case, if it's level after an hour, then I don't know, both teams might kind of just subconsciously decide that a draw is a great result for both. I think both would take a draw now, and sometimes when that's the case, the result is a draw.
I mean, when you're looking at the math too, I mean, just all they need to do is essentially to reach 17 points, because Honduras and United States both can't reach that 17-point level, because one of them could, but because they're both going up against each other, they both can't. So knowing the fact that they're just 3 points away, I could see maybe why, like you just said, 1-1 wouldn't be the worst result, and that's still pushing them one step closer to the World Cup. So yeah, that is something worth noting. Nayib,
I think it's gonna go down to the interpretation of the game, or the way that Mexico takes it on. Because I think if Mexico takes it on with the same enthusiasm and intensity that they did the Columbus game, I think Mexico can win this. 1-0, 2-1 again, kind of one goal victory as it was in Columbus. I think in a game like this one, it's a good one for Osorio to sort of show how tight the defense is. That the defense is working out even with certain absences, no, as we can say, not having Araujo, not having Salcedo, who have in the last, I would say months, they were kind of sure starters in the defense. No Layun también, so it's another miss there. So I think here it depends mainly on the interpretation of Mexico. It depends on the factors as well. Like you said, if the draw works for both sides, then it's nice too. But I think if Mexico takes it with intensity and understands, because I think the repercussion will be great if it's a win. I think when 6, it'll be the first. It's been a successful hexagonal, but none of the hexagonal dates have finished, with a perfect 6 out of 6. No, it's been 4 out of 6, I think, for the most part. No, if I'm not mistaken. So getting 6 out of 6 would be humongous, no, especially at this moment. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so that'd be the icing on the cake right now, especially after that qualifying already. That'd be huge. That'd be massive. Tom, close us out on Costa Rica, since you're over there. I figured we might try to get a little bit more from you. I don't know, maybe I could talk about a little bit more, but since you're over there hanging out, just any last thoughts before tomorrow's match? Any last thoughts on maybe what the Costa Rican press has been saying? Maybe there's a certain player that they're focusing on.
In terms of players, I mean, I just think it's always a big game when Mexico come to town, and you could see that in the press conference. They were announcing a few things, and they kept going on, and there's going to be massive security for the game. In terms of a player, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what Keylor Navas means to this country is unbelievable. I did a story yesterday on ESPN, and went around speaking to people. Spoke to Christian Gamboa, the Celtic fullback. Spoke to just people around town, a couple of journalists, and I don't know. I mean, it's a country that I know one chap did well in England, but it's a country that's never really had a massive superstar. And Navas' story is just incredible. Yeah. I mean, a kid who got rejected by his local team, age 13. His parents both emigrated to the United States. He was brought up by his grandfather. Age 14, he gets on the bus and comes to San Jose, works his way up through Saprissa. Wins the CONCACAF Champions League with Saprissa, plays in the Club World Cup. Moves over to Spain, struggles with Albacete, in the second division, moves to a Levante, then after the World Cup goes to Real Madrid, and it's really like it's a movie, and they're making a movie about him actually, Hombre de Fe, and I think that it's just incredible to see the reaction. And I don't know, it's interesting because I wonder if foreigners go to Mexico, if they mention Chicharito, and Mexicans are still so enthused about him, because when I say like 8 years ago, whatever, I think Mexicans definitely were, but it'd be interesting to know if today they still have that kind of warmth. I don't know.
Nayib, it sounded like you're about to say something there.
No, I think that Keylor Navas is just a phenomenal story, because when you see how he came into Real Madrid after Iker Casillas departed the team, it's not the easiest shoes to fill in, no. And then on top of that, the David De Gea rumor that happened, that David De Gea was about to arrive to Manchester United, and Keylor was about to head to Manchester. That's out of a movie, like Tom said. And he stayed, and look how the Champions League he's won with Zidane.
That was like an issue with the fax machine, right, or something.
Yeah, the fax machine or something of that sort. But look, enough about the Chicharito. I think it's different levels, of course, because Chicharito hasn't been able to win the Champions League like Keylor has, but no Mexican footballer in the history has gone to the Premier League and caused the impact that Chicharito has.
Right.
I mean, it's a whole different culture, different way of playing the game. I mean, that is so contrary to how a Mexican footballer grows in. I mean, Mexican footballer, you never expect a Mexican footballer to transcend in England. And Chicharito did it, in his first year, which is even crazier when you think about it. But a correction, actually, Mexico did do 6 out of 6 when they beat Costa Rica 2-0 at Azteca, and then they went to Trinidad and won 1-0, where the Diego Reyes goal. So they have done 6 out of 6 in this hexagonal. It would be nice if they do it again.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Guys, go ahead, Tom.
I just want to, I know, because some people in the chat, they're talking about, I think before, not right now, but talking about the, Osorio making crazy kind of decisions about who to start and who to play and stuff like that. I mean, for me, if you look back at the recent history of Mexican football, the fact that Chicharito has started 1 World Cup game out of 8 is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
Aguirre in 2010 Chicharito was banging the goals in for Chivas. He just signed for Man United, and he plays Franco in front of him. Yeah. I mean, and then Miguel Herrera plays Oribe Peralta. That's the kind of thing that people looking in at Mexican football are like, what on earth is going on? Whereas some of the stuff Osorio does is, it's quite common in other places. Playing a centre back as a fullback isn't something revolutionary that's absolutely crazy. There's absolutely loads of examples. Mourinho does it all the time. He did, as soon as he went to Chelsea, that's what he did. There's plenty of examples in the Premier League, and Osorio watches those leagues. He's getting that influences from those leagues. So I don't know. I think if you want to talk about
starting Bofo Bautista against Argentina in the round of 16 in 2010, I mean, that's a crazy ass decision, right?
I mean, yeah. So I don't know. I just think sometimes we get kind of a kind of short-termism as well about especially with Osorio, he just kind of seems to evoke that. Every decision he makes is so heavily criticized. That's not to say they're all right. I'm pretty sure he would admit that, for example, starting Alanis against Germany was the wrong decision. But then he would probably argue, for example, Luis Reyes. Mm-hmm. That's somebody who's played like 30 games in the first division. I mean, it's not like you play Luis Reyes and you win that game. It's not like you drop in Chicharito, your main player. It's like you put in a different player for Luis Reyes, who's barely played any games even in Mexico's first division. So I don't know.
Well, something to think about too. I mean, just off that topic, is just to think about Mexico's future. Whether you'll still see some of those changes. Well, you still see some of those fullbacks, not getting a call up. You'll see some of those center backs in those positions. And you think about, just the fact, I don't know, if you think about if you're in, I mean, that was a poor transition, but guys, it was a poor transition. I'm going to make a completely transition. The World Cup spot is now guaranteed for Mexico. Imagine you're Juan Carlos Osorio. Imagine you have his notebook. You have that forward-facing backpack that he always seems to have, his glasses. How would you properly prepare Mexico for Russia 2018? Nayib, we're going to go to you.
No, I think one of the first steps, and it would be massive, is if in November the federation gives them a hand and they can actually go to Europe, and play against those teams that are already qualified to the World Cup directly. The first European team to qualify was Belgium. So it'd be nice to play against the Belgium side, in Belgium, considering that, when you see Belgium's 11, it's like Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City, Tottenham, all these teams, Napoli. So it's a strong team, and to compete against that type of team would be massive to see where Mexico stands. We kind of got a sense in the Confederations Cup, but to keep this process rolling, the memoria colectiva that he talks a lot about. I mean, we haven't touched it, but that's one of his bases of his work, to be able to play and think the same way, the 11 players, that he tends to, because we say here that there's not a legitimate 11, but there's 10 players that you can tell that they have played most of the game. So with those specific 10 players or 11 players, to build that collective memory that he talks a lot about. Also with Imanol Ibarrondo, I think he's still with the team, and the psychological aspect with the team, I think it's important, because I do sense that Mexico's eliminations in World Cups, and we saw it in the Confederations Cup against Portugal in the third place match, I think there was kind of a psychological breakdown. They concede one goal and then everything falls apart. It happened against the Netherlands in 2014. So I think that is something to work, and it doesn't change from one year to the other. It doesn't change from
Osorio, it was interesting to hear Osorio talk the other day, and he mentioned the Uruguay game, the Copa America Centenario, because Mexico were up, and then Uruguay went down to 10 players, and then Uruguay scored, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
And then Mexico only came back when Mexico also went down to 10 players. And Osorio attributes that equalizer from Uruguay to kind of a mental breakdown. It's like, oh, we're suddenly in the position of power. We're playing 10 players, we're 1-0 up. We can't lose. And then the fear kicks in, of kind of, I don't know. So yeah, no, I think that's massive. I think that's massive moving forward.
Yes. I think if I remember correctly, Osorio has said in the past that when he watches other people's when he watches other matches, other teams and whatnot, that he always puts himself in the position of the coach who's losing the game, and he always thinks that, what am I going to do? What would I do in this situation if, for example, I went down to 10 players, or if he puts himself in that position where they get a setback. So it is kind of interesting when you say something like that, where they lose a player and he's just like, all right, here we go. I know exactly what to do in this situation.
No, and I think that works with time. I mean, I think that's something that people have to understand, is to hone a craft. It doesn't happen in 6 months. In Mexico, I mean, it's everything is so quick. I guess I don't know if it's because of the short season format or whatnot. No one understands that these processes take a long time to develop. It's I was looking, for example, right now what's going on with Spain. And of course, Spain's revolution in football started in 1992 after the Olympics in Barcelona. That's when the football, kind of started raising up. The youth teams, the coaches as well, started to prepare themselves more adequately and have more ideas from abroad, from the Netherlands specifically, and from Germany. And they carried that all in, and now they're seeing the fruits. I mean, of course, they won the World Cup in 2010 with a great generation. But they had let's not forget, in 2014, they didn't make it out of the group stage in the World Cup, Spain, so, and they went through this breakdown, and now they're coming back up with the discovery of talents like Isco and Marco Asensio, which are players that are fruits of the good youth development that they have in Spain, but it's not always mundo de caramelo, or it's a beautiful world. No. I think you got to have accidents. Brazil had an accident, the 7-0 against Germany. And look at now, Brazil looking like they're flying. They're already in the World Cup and whatnot. So it changes with time, no?
I mean, it's international football as well. I think it's what some people find it difficult to understand, but there aren't perfect teams. It's very difficult to get this ideal teams. A lot more difficult at international level than club. because at club level, obviously, you can buy players in. You can scout players and specifically identify somebody you want to bring in to improve your team to kind of plug gaps into what you need. Whereas international football,
just wait until we get Aviles Hurtado, Tom. Just wait until we get Aviles into the team. So.
Sign him up. Sign him up.
No, and that's a good point, Tom, because I mentioned Belgium, and I was really intrigued on watching Belgium play against Greece. They barely beat Greece 2-1. But look, all the names that they have. I mean, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, Hazard, Fellaini, Lukaku, Meunier, who plays in PSG, Courtois. It's an amazing team, but it's not like Belgium played lights out. They won the match, which is what mattered. But it's not like, I was in love with how they play. And look at all the names that they have, and where all these players play. I mean, it's not easy as it looks. I mean, it's not like, we're gonna put the best 11 players, we're gonna make them play fantastic. No, it's Spain. It's Spain. The win against the 3-0 win over Italy that just happened with Spain is because Isco had a marvelous game.
Yeah,
an important factor.
No, I mean, I think even if you look at Brazil and the flying and the qualifiers, there are deficiencies in that Brazil side. In the Spanish team, there's ways of beating that Spanish team. The only team that I feel so complete is the German team, because they've not just got 11 players, they've got another 11 players like they showed at the Confederations Cup that can slot in, And I think when you look forward to Mexico, Osorio always says it, and it's quite interesting because it's something I don't think people pick up on, because you don't write a story about it. It's not worthy of a story. It's not worthy of kind of being on TV and saying it. But he says, if we've got all our players fit, we can go toe to toe with any other team in the world. But when he says that, he says the injury thing first. And then you go back to the Germany game, and he said he would have played a completely different system against Germany if he would have had Carlos Salcedo or Diego Reyes fit. So I think it's in Mexico's case, it's really important that moving ahead to the World Cup, whatever he plays wherever in November, and maybe he calls up the European-based players in October, maybe he doesn't. I think it's going to be a mix. I think he'll give some of them a rest. But you need a bit of luck as well. Mexico going to need some luck from now to the World Cup.
Look what happened last summer with Tecatito. I mean, the Tecatito news was a shocker. I mean, that just came out of nowhere. And that does affect your offensive legion. I mean, because Mexico doesn't have that many Tecatitos. I mean, it's just one. And if he's not present, the offense will not look the same. And even though it didn't look the same in the Confederations, they still got the win against Russia. They drew against Portugal. And that's as much as you can. With Germany, we hoped that it could have happened. Something special could have happened. But it wasn't like there was that many options to get the win in that game after all.
Yeah, speaking of those injuries, it does seem like that's something that hurts Mexico every now and then. I mean, literally, is that you do have those injury problems with almost like every call-up. And every call-up, you do see at least a few names are out. I mean, just recently you saw Moreno that was out in the last match. So yeah, Mexico does need a little bit of that luck. Let's see what happens. Let me going over to the chat for the question. What would you do if you're Osorio? How would you properly prepare Mexico for Russia 2018? We have some answers here from the chat. We have one from the MGuy24 who says, try out new players and play in different stadiums. A wolf in sheep's clothing says, watch the 7-0 loss over and over to build a pain so deep they could never replicate such a showing. And then MJP, who's not a fan of Layun, said, never call up Layun again. He's terrible. And I don't know from this last one, I don't know if this is from Jason or from someone else in the chat. I think it's from Jason. It says he just has to know what page to turn to in his notebook. Guys,
there's another one good here from Marcelo. He says, you guys should watch Club de Cuervos on Netflix and you'll understand why Mexican football hasn't progressed in the last years.
That's a good plug-in for Club de Cuervos. It's a quite good show. Club de Cuervos, if you're watching, will be a sponsor. We can have a giant Club de Cuervos flag right there. Guys, I'm going to end the show. I'm going to ask you guys this question. I mean, it's a big question. Of course, it's the biggest question before every World Cup. All right, we're a little over 9 months away. Will Juan Carlos Osorio carry Mexico to the mythical, and I do mean mythical, the mythical quinto partido in the next World Cup? We have to start talking about it. Everyone's going to be talking about it every week, every day until next summer. Nayib, is Osorio going to take us there?
This is a question that I don't know. It's like you can go yes or no. But I think You can go yes or no. You can go yes or no, but to really pinpoint the situation, there's just a lot of factors that have to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the main things that has to happen with Mexico is, in order for them to reach this quinto partido, I think they have to win the group, and finish first, because that gives them the possibility to, look, the last time Mexico finished first in a World Cup group was in 2002, and they lost against the US. They had everything to win that match.
Yeah.
They had everything to win them, especially after they play against Croatia and Italy, and they look awesome. I mean, but look, the accident that happened. Since then, they finished second in the group, and they played Argentina twice and then the Netherlands. I mean, if they finish second in the group this time around, they're probably going to face, the teams that we just mentioned: Brazil, France, Germany. Those teams, probably Spain might come up. So I right now I don't know how to explain. I mean, a lot of factors have to work out in Mexico's way in order to reach the quinto partido. I mean, I can't say yes or no. I mean, I'd rather leave that third option. Is a lot of factors have to happen in order to happen. But Mexico has some talent to reach that point.
Tom, the same vague question for you.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, I think
write it down. Everyone on Twitter, Tom just said it.
Write it down. No, I think they can do. I think it's not just about Osorio; it's about the federation as well. I think for the first time in a long, long time, they've done things right. Basically, since 2006, they've done things the right way. They've not bowed to the pressure for the coach to be fired, and I think it's paying off. It's paid off in this World Cup qualifying campaign. It's been quite easy. The last time that happened was 2006, and what happened then? La Volpe had a long time to work with the players. I don't think those are kind of isolated facts. You know what I mean? I think it's because of the same thing. I think it's because these guys have had time to work with the players, and going ahead to the World Cup, I just think Osorio's the type of manager who has the faith of the players, that has the tools. He's got the analysis of the opposition team to get a result. He also has the negative experiences behind him, which are going to be helpful. That 7-0 against Chile was, at the end of the day, was hugely helpful for this whole process moving towards the World Cup, because it was an absolute slap in the face. Because if you go back to before that Chile game, everyone was like, Mexico going to win the Copa America, Mexico are amazing, Osorio's absolute genius, blah, blah, blah. And it's like that 7-0 was it just brought everybody back down to earth. And really, right, this is where Mexico is at. How are we going to rebuild from here? What do we have to do from now to the World Cup to achieve our targets? Like I said, Mexico are going to need some luck. Injuries, absolutely key. Players being in form, absolutely key. And also the draw. I mean, the draw's going to be massive. I mean, I think if Mexico get a Germany in the round of 16, it's just unlucky. I don't think it's going to be extremely difficult for Mexico to beat a full-strength Germany. Same with Argentina, Brazil, but it's not impossible. And I think that this team's in a really good place right now. As good as it can be. Don't get me wrong. I think we've got to separate two things as well. No, I'm rambling on here, but I think we've got to separate.
It's a complex answer. It's a complex answer.
Yeah, it's a very complex. Yeah.
But I think we've got to separate the kind of the team right now, the state of the team, as we see it, the best 11, the best 20, the best 25 players, and what else is going on in Mexican football, which is, the 9-9 rule and the lack of opportunity. Because I think right now this team's quite good, because you've got a team that's going to arrive in the World Cup basically at the prime, in terms of age-wise, in terms of maturity. Majority for I think the first time ever, Mexico are going to have a majority of Europe-based players in the World Cup, in the World Cup squad. But the other side you've got to separate, because I think you got to worry about what's coming in the next generations. But I think in terms of next year in Russia, it's positive. Mexico have also had the experience of being in the Confederations Cup, and from being there myself, it's massive. I mean, it is absolutely massive. You know how things work. You know what to expect over there, and I think that's a massive benefit compared to other nations who are going there for the first time. Definitely.
Yeah. No, I mean, my answer is, I think Tom mentioned a couple things that I agree with. I'll say yes, and I think a lot of it has to do with that. This is for that generation of players, those guys between 28 to 30, 31. This might be their last World Cup. Not saying that it is going to be the last World Cup for all these guys, but for some of these guys. So I think, I mean, you're talking about, you know, the Chicharitos, the Guardados, the Morenos, the Ochoas, you know, and they are, a lot of these guys are European based. So like if there was a time for them to do this with Osorio too, I mean, you've had a full process. And I think you can't stress enough how important it is to have that full process.
No, and the mental aspect is important. No, I think we mentioned it in the show. I mean, I think that's going to be important, and that's why Manoli Barrondo is in the team, you know. And I thought it was going to be just a short term, and is actually extending all the way to the World Cup. So hopefully it works out with that. I mean, I think he has a lot to offer. It seems that Osorio's coaching staff is really in tune with him, and I think it's going to be important on certain players also. No, it's like we're talking about Vela and Giovanni, and I think they need a good shakeup in the heads for them to do something remarkable. No, I think they still have something in the tank. No, they have something else to offer, and then hopefully it could be this World Cup.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen, guys. I think it's going to happen. I'm confident. So everyone, thank you for watching the show. Thank you for everyone on the chat. Sorry if I didn't get a chance to answer some of your look at some of your questions here. Jason said a good amount. I probably should have been focusing a little bit more on those, but Nayib, you'll get the chance to close us out. You know, anything you want to talk about? It looks like you're focusing on the U.S. Open. We were talking about video games and tennis beforehand for whatever reason. But close us out. Anything, whether it be the U.S. Open, whether it be Mexico's upcoming match tomorrow against Costa Rica.
No, I think you know, overall it's nice to be in this position. You know, after the horrible World Cup cycle that happened in the last one. You know, the last one was just horrific. So now to see Mexico calmly enter the World Cup. And see, you know, how complicated, understand, you know, the reality of our region, because I think we do underestimate it at certain points. And the fact that the U.S. is having so much complications to qualify, it just shows you that to a certain extent, the region is you know, growing. You know, it might be a slow progression, and I think it is slow, as it is a slow progression with Mexican football. You know, this is taking bit by bit. You know, I think Mexico is doing a lot of great things. You know, the youth teams has been something that we've praised for many years, but to find ways to connect that, to connect it to the league, to connect it to the national team, I think that's when Mexico will reach the highest of levels. You know, but right now I don't see in tune, for example, the youth work with the league. The league is doing something else that is just totally different to helping the national team keep prospering, you know. So I think that's something to look forward to. But you know, to see El Tri in the World Cup is always exciting.
All right, guys. Thank you once again, everyone who watched the show. Thank you again to Nayib and Tom, and also to Jason, of course, who helped out. Yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow against Costa Rica. Big game. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter. We'll be giving you some updates on the match. Of course, follow Tom, too, who'll be at the game. And until next time, we'll see you on the next edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. Have a good night, guys.